Welcome and good morning to everybody here this morning. It's really great to see you. Do you ever have days or times where you feel that you can get nothing right and that you're just totally blowing it for the day? This morning's presentation is part of a series we're doing on how some of God's people blew it. And we bring that to you in the form of creative art using dance, drama and song. Next up we have a drama entitled Not So Bad Lady.
Hey, look at that smelly lady. Yeah, she stinks. Wonder if she's even heard of a bath. What a smelly bomb. Wonder what planet she's from. Planet stink. And look at those clothes. Is she in a washing machine? Has she ever heard of soap? Where'd she get them from anyway? You're right. Nah, the $2 shop. Nah, the $1 shop. Nah, the 50-cent shop. Nah, the 5-cent shop. Nah, the half-cent shop. Not funny anymore. I hate old people. Yeah, they should all be shot at birth. Hey, you two. Yes, you. Stop it. Why? What are you going to do about it? Yeah, what are you going to do about it, ugly? Ugly? Yeah, you so ugly. When you walk into a bank, they turn off all the security cameras. Why, you little punks, you wait. Wait till what? Yeah, I was so scared. Well, you will be by the time I finish with you. Now get lost. Come on, let's go. This is boring. Yeah, at least we can find someone else to harass. Why, you little creeps. Thank you, dear. No problem. Why didn't you do something about that? What could I do? Stand up for yourself, defend yourself? Yes, you can. No, I can't. I'm just old and frail. You're not just old and frail. You're not. You're a human like me, a person. I'm sorry. My name's Susan. Well, that's a lovely name, Mary. Thank you. That's nice. So why didn't you fight back? It's not worth it. What do you mean it's not worth it? No point. Not worth it. Listen to yourself, Mary. You are worth it. Your self-esteem, your pride as a person. I have no pride. My father taught me that pride was wrong. To not think of myself, but to think of others. I have no self-esteem anymore. I lost that a long time ago. Well, I don't mean to be rude, but your father is wrong. Pride is a good thing. And is it any wonder you don't have any self-esteem? You have people walking all over you like that. You've got to stand up for yourself. No, Susan. Why not? Do you know the Bible? Sort of. You do the Daniel? No, Daniel and the lion's den? Oh, yeah. Well, Daniel was the man who believed in God. Back in those days, when the king told him to do something, he did it. He died. And one of the commands the king decreed was
during this part of the service, we take up our tithes and offerings. So if I could get those people involved to help me with that, please. Now, if you're a visitor here with us this morning, there is no expectation that you place anything in the offering bag. This special event is our gift to you. We as a fellowship are committed to the giving of tithes. Just while this is happening, I'd like to pray for you. Father God, we want to give you thanks for what you've given us, Lord. And we just pray right now, as this money has been given back to you, that we ask that you use it for the glory of your kingdom. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. After our service this morning, we'd like to welcome you back for a cup of tea or coffee and enjoy our fellowship. So I'm sure that you will enjoy that moment with us. Now, as you came in this morning, you would have received a flyer. And next week we have another special event titled Calling Through. Now this takes place at 6:30 next Sunday night. And this is a follow-on from our series of How God's People Blew It. So we'd love to see you back for this. Now you would have noticed we've had some wonderful transformations to our building lately. Now because of this, the roofs have been opened up and the elements of the weather have taken its course. And unfortunately there are a few puddles around our building and we apologise for this inconvenience. But we do ask you to pay special attention to our toilet areas because the floors are really quite wet and there are a few buckets in there, so don't keep your buckets wet. Next up, we have the congregational song. So if I could ask you to stand, please, and welcome on the music team.
God's word teaches such a mystery. Put your trust in God and not the praise of men. Oh, you won't fear the lion's den. Every age and every stage, lions reign. So pray, stand your ground, they'll lie down. And if we play by lion's rules, start lionizing fools. Down the road, you're gonna find, like the eagles we will fly. Late one night in a fever dream, Prophet Daniel came to me. Sir, I said, I've lost my nerve. I lips serve God and put my faith in godless men. Oh, I hear the lion there. Then he said, who said I'm not feel like more? Who says I want to wet my road? Faith is tough, boy, but God gives grace. And take a deep breath in, I'll set your face like this. Yes, I'll be a winner. Every age and every stage, lions reign. So pray, stand your ground, they'll lie down. Yeah, 'cause every age and every stage, lions reign. So pray, stand your ground, they'll lie down. Lions lie down.
We read in the Bible, let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck, write them on the tablet of your heart. Then you will win favour and a good name in the sight of God and man. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. This will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. Now we have a dance entitled, In You I Live.
Today the grass is greener than I have ever seen. Today
here has experiences where we know we've done the best and other times when we haven't. And last week, for those of you who weren't here, we covered this whole thing of dealing with failure. Now this week we're going to tackle it quite differently. But just so that you might remember if you're here, and if you weren't, you can see for yourself. Here we are. David had high-level failure. Esther had low-level failure. Today, we're dealing with Daniel and Mary. Now, I forgot to tell the guys that I'd swapped from Mary Magdalene to Mary, the mother of Jesus. So the dance there, in a sense, still relates, even though we had a different Mary. Well, we did have the other one there as well, of course. You know, the thing is that every one of us can come from a place of strength, but you'll discover today there's two people who came from different places. Let's see it like this. We have a window frame. Now all of us can walk outside and we can take a look at everything that's around. Or all of us can take that narrow view. Now for me, the only thing I can see when I'm in here, the only thing I can see, well, I can see you there, but I can't see anything out here. I can't see anything around there. Because I'm taking a narrow view. A view which is limited by the perspectives that I have created, by the fact that I have chosen to place myself in this situation. Not a very big window, is it? Kind of ideal for a situation, especially built for the children's church last year. The puppy's still wet. Yuck. There are two people we're going to talk about this morning. Both of them had an almost identical thing said to them, but both of them had quite different lives in a way. You see, there was Daniel and Mary. Mary was, first of all, one occasion, she was just there and she had this visit from an angel, which Daniel also had. And it said, woman highly favoured of God. Daniel, in another situation, was a man who was standing by a river. Once again, he got this visitation and he was told that he was highly esteemed by God. Two people, two situations, both of them getting similar comments. But what actually happened? See, there are some people who would put Mary very highly on the scale of reference and say she was one of the greatest women in history. There's no two ways about it what she was. She was the bearer of the child of God. She was the one who came for one purpose. She lived here to bear Jesus. And the thing that we find here though with Mary is that she came once when Jesus was young and he disappeared and they couldn't find him anywhere. And they went looking for him and eventually they found him in the temple and he was speaking and he was talking with the people there. And at the time, she came to Jesus, she said, don't you understand? Your father and I have been really anxious about you. We've been searching for you everywhere. At the time, Jesus' response was to say to her very clearly, he said, didn't you know I'd be in my father's house? Didn't you know that's where I'd be? It's interesting because just 2 verses afterwards it said that Mary treasured all these things in her heart. There were some very powerful moments there. But her maternal instincts were driving her. She wanted her son to do what she wanted him to do. Now, I think we're all like that. Wouldn't you agree? Yes?
Yes.
You're not a quiet lot this morning. The rain's calmed you down. I mean, the guys, yeah, we finished the roof yesterday. Well, the day before yesterday, we thought we'd finish the roof and put a bit of flashing in, thinking we'd steer the water through a different course to where it had been before because we had to. And what we didn't know is hidden underneath the flashing, somebody had cut a piece out of the roof. So the water goes barrelling down the roof, under the roof, across the building paper, dives across sideways. For some reason, there must be a wrong shape or angle in the building there somewhere. And it appears in the women's toilets as a flowing cascade of water. It literally was a wide flowing cascade of water. That wide, no kidding. You had to walk through a sheet of rain on its own. And I thought it was kind of funny in a way. I rang Bruce to tell him I didn't dare ring Ralph. He might have, after our attempts at stealing the water, I rang Bruce because I couldn't resist ringing somebody to tell them the joke. You know, what we think is all perfect sometimes has flaws in it. And we think we're doing the right thing. Mary thought she was really doing the right thing for her son. And he suddenly says, didn't you know? Didn't you know that I'd be about my father's business? Didn't you know I'd be here? Wasn't it logical? Joseph's not my physical father. Didn't you know I would be here? We actually don't hear anything else of Joseph. Very interesting. We don't hear anything. Because the father and the mother are the two that Jesus is relating to. I'm sure that it's only because the gospel writers couldn't see all the other aspects of his life. But in spite of everything, she still wanted control. In spite of all the things she knew, and as time went by, she turned up now and again with his brothers and his sister, some of them that you've never heard of. And the people started getting worried, you know, your mother and your brothers and sister, they're outside. Who are? The brothers and mother and sister, said Jesus. Those who hear the will of God and do it. Now, that could have really eaten at your heart if you'd been Mary. Don't you agree? It was a criticism. It was a criticism because of their concern. They were getting a little too concerned about things that they would have been best to leave alone. She had already learnt it. She already knew. She was the one who turned around and said to people, do whatever he tells you. He can do these marvellous things, but do whatever he tells you. But somehow he couldn't look after himself. And she decided she was going to try and do it. Even though he'd grown old and he was an adult and he was 30 years old, they were still turning up, hassling about some little thing. Now, I'm tempted to ask you, how many of you have mothers who do that? Don't raise your hands. Leave them down. You see, we all do it. We all do these kinds of things. And we're no different to Mary in that way. But the interesting thing about Mary, there's a credit on the list. When it came to the crunch, when it came to the real big crunch, in fact, we find Mary, the anxious one, the one who misjudged the mission of Jesus, the one who had experienced that incredibly powerful experience before he was even born, of a visitation, the one who still wanted control at all points if she could, the one who failed to break the paradigms of history and a fear that she had about her son. That one. The one who had a heart ripped apart when her son hung on a cross. She was there. She was still there. And she stood strong when faced with tough situations in a way that most of us may have found hard. You see, to be there could have meant, it could have been death in her day. She was the one. I remember years ago I went through an experience. My mum has since changed her view of this. But I've not long become a Christian. And I had this book written by a guy called David Wilkerson sitting on my desk. And in my small bedroom. My bedroom was about that much wider than my bed. And it used to be an old corn store sort of room. It's a brick house. Dad converted it so I could have a room on my own. And Mum, unbeknown to me, had obviously been reading my books and my Bible and other things. I found it very hard when I became a Christian. It wasn't an easy thing for me. And she read this book. I happened to be reading a piece in the book which says, you've got to be prepared to deny your mother and father. Now, she'd actually read 4 or 5 pages. She would have been safe, but she read one piece out of it. And when I got home, all hell broke loose in our house. I didn't know why. I couldn't understand why. And when the book was quoted and I tried to explain it, David Wilkerson, this Christian guy, was an evil man because he was teaching me to disobey my parents. That's not what the book was saying. But can you see what I'm saying? My mum, as I said, has changed her mind totally about that whole deal. They said my Christianity wouldn't last long, it'd be a 10-minute wonder and be gone. Couldn't have been more wrong, could they? But I think they're pretty pleased about that now. But the one thing that happens to us sometimes is we take out of life what we want to take and we apply it and we get it wrong so often. Mary got it wrong. Most of our mothers and fathers get it wrong at some points, and we will get it wrong. Isn't that true, amen? Well, the hope is after today, it might help us a little. We have a second person. You see, Mary did blow it. She failed at points. There's one guy, and there's only 1 or 2 of them around. There's one guy in the Bible who really bugs me. Because he did something really radical. What he did is he kept thinking differently. He was a guy who was taken, his name was Daniel. Most of you know the story of Daniel and the lion's den. We don't really know the story, most of you, probably. You know about the story. The point in the song was driven home clearly. Didn't they do well, yeah? But there's some things about Daniel maybe that you don't know. Here's a rundown of his life. He was a guy who was taken into exile in Babylon. He was selected because he was fairly handsome sort of dude. He chose not to eat the food that they had because it was a religious food that was against his God and his eyes. He was a guy who ended up in several situations facing things like the lion's den. He constantly kept having interpretation of dreams that other people couldn't understand. He then also had dreams and visions of his own, which were quite amazing pictures, and people are still trying to unravel them to this day in history. People keep thinking they've understood them clearly, but right at the end of the book, if they took note, it says that a lot of the things he wasn't allowed to tell because he'd seen these marvelous things that God, for some reason, didn't want him to disclose. And then we think we can figure it all out. Pretty clever people, aren't we? Dumb. Daniel also had 3 friends who were very faithful friends. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They're the guys who ended up in a fiery furnace, and a 4th person was seen walking around in the fire, and they came out, even though it was heated 7 times hotter than normal. Still alive. I don't know what they smelt like, but they were still alive. But not a hair on their head was singed. It doesn't say that the fire didn't leave them smelling. I don't know quite what happened there. But something happened that his friends came out just like Daniel did out of the lion's den. Had that incredible thing. Most of us fear little things. Some of us here probably fear spiders and snakes. the least. Now, some of us here don't even like going swimming in the deep ocean. I know, somebody told me this last night. In the deep ocean, because the sharks might be there. One guy said to me yesterday, he says, I don't like the deep sea. Scary stuff. Well, he hadn't been reading the article I was reading yesterday about the sharks. You know, the guy who's 16 years old, he got his shark, his board bitten in two, you remember that? He managed to get to shore and had 90 stitches placed in his body afterwards. And he goes hunting and looking at sharks, hunting for them. He doesn't kill them, just likes to look at them. One of the things that caused me to think about this is two of our guys were watching a movie last night. And these guys are waiting for the big waves. The biggest waves in the world, some of the 40-foot ones. And he was sitting on his board with his feet in the water, and somebody got up under with a camera and looked at him, and I said to the guys, gee whiz, that's a good shark's view of it, you know. No wonder they want some. Most of us have some kind of thing we fear. And that kind of fear attracts some of the animal world really powerfully. If you were sitting with Daniel in the lion's den, I wonder what would have happened. Would a little trickle have run down your back, a sweat, as you anticipated the awesome power of the jaws that were about to clamp on you? Or would you have sat like Daniel, who sat in the den, knowing what he had said, saying, I don't care what happens to me, my God can look after me. He had this confidence that his God could look after him. He was a guy who had several aspects to his life. And although we've headed this series, God's people who blew it, this was one guy who didn't. Isn't that nice? He was a guy of faithfulness, a guy of obedience, and a guy of spirituality. Here are the things that go with those different areas. The faithfulness thing was he always kept integrity. He never let the side down in terms of who he was. He never blew it. He never went pursuing his own agendas or his own ways. He always considered what God would want and what was best for his fellows around him. Then he was a man of humility. Every time the king wanted to honour him and give him lots of money and all the rest of that kind of stuff, Daniel said, keep it. They'll want it. But sometimes they still gave him stuff, and I guess that probably left him feeling uncomfortable in the light of what he said. But he said, I don't want your riches, I don't want all that. I'll give you what God's given you as a message in your dream, he said. He had self-control. He could have actually gotten very angry. He could have done some other things which he didn't do. I'm quite amazed. I probably sometimes would have felt like saying, God, strike the king dead and all his cohorts. I've sometimes felt like that about other people, let alone a guy who's doing what King Nebuchadnezzar and the others were doing to him. But here was this guy of real self-control. Then he was a man of obedience. When the bottom line came, when it was required that he would either stand for God or just sort of say, well, today I won't. There was an occasion when it was said, it was connected to the lion's den incident, that you're not to pray to anything else except to the king's orders. King is God, after all, is the way that they viewed him. Daniel intentionally sat. He intentionally sat where he always sat, in front of the window, where he could be seen, and he prayed to his God. And because of that, he could have lost his life, but he took the risk at the end of the day. So he was a man of courage. He held to his convictions, he never wavered from them. Of course, they were good convictions. And then the last one, to spirituality. The dynamic that's missing from a lot of lives. In fact, could I suggest this? Spirituality always has that as part of it. And a fair amount of that. Because to be spiritual means that you're connecting with God. And part of the way of connecting with God is to talk to Him, share with Him, relate with Him, and go His way. See, spiritual wisdom was an extra that Daniel had, but not all of us have that spiritual wisdom, but he did, because he really sought God. He really sought to know God. He really sought to know what God would want from him. So Daniel was a man like this. Now, why was it? Daniel was like that, and that Mary had difficulties. Well, let's look at it like this. We all desire significant meaning in our lives, but very few of us reach the high points. Yes, isn't that true? Hello? Yes? Very few of us reach the high points. Most of us settle for mediocre or average, and some for less. Some try to get high, but they do it the wrong way, and so really, it's not really a high point, it's just a low point of their lives. People pretending differently. But here's how it goes. It's like this. We need to start to think outside the square. That's why I called this thinking outside the square this morning. You see, in terms of our character, our traits, the good and bad aspects of us, most of the things we do are needs-based. This is what I want, this is what I need, this is what my family wants or needs, or whatever thing we come up with. That's where we mostly live. Now, outside that framework, we have obligations which we will often reach to, but not always do we reach to. We have obligations to family, to society, and we also have some personal obligations which relate to others around us. But that is basically where most human beings stop. Now and again, if there's a real extreme experience, and I imagine if you were a person that was a friend of Daniel's in his day, put yourself in his shoes. Can you imagine it? Daniel's mate, highly spiritual man. Imagine you're not so spiritual. Probably not in any case, so there we are, okay? Imagine being with Daniel, and they said to you, because you are Daniel's friend, into the lion's den with you. Here you go. What would you do? What would you do right then? I imagine for the first time, maybe for a long time or ever, you would suddenly discover that the spiritual is important. You would move into a new dynamic. Whether you claim to be a Christian or not right now, you probably pray more than you've ever prayed before. You'd be sitting there amazed at Daniel's calmness. You'd have sweat running down your backs, and you'd see the saliva running down the jaws of the lion. And you'd be thinking some awesomely terrible thoughts and saying, God, help me! Please, drop a rock on the lion! Some of you might not have enough faith for that. You might just pray, God, please don't let it hurt. But whatever, most of us suddenly become spiritual when we get desperate. Largely we react unspiritually in a lot of the things we do in life. And the thing that I think that we need to do is to understand why Mary failed so much and why Daniel didn't. You see, Mary kept living in this thing here. I don't know who her parents were, but I would suggest, just like any parents, they probably had some kind of weaknesses. And one of them was a need to control their children, because it showed up in Mary's life. A need to control their children. Maybe not only their children, probably their husbands and anybody else that got online didn't have a stronger will to control. Whatever it was, it certainly pervaded Mary's life. It certainly infringed on her life totally. And we can sometimes do the same thing. And can I suggest this to you? That we should not live in this realm here with that aspect, with the bad aspects. We need to have them remodified. And I would suggest to you this morning that there's a way of remodifying. Let me read for you what was read to us earlier this morning. Listen, in the light of Daniel and Mary. Let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. There you will win favour and a good name in the sight of God and man. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and don't lean on your understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil, and this will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. Think about that for a moment. What's it really saying? Bottom line, it's saying live outside that. Don't use this as your frame of reference or your frame for excuses. I am amazed over the years how many times I've been talking with people and they've said to me, I say, why do you think we do this? They say, oh, because my mother or my father did that. And it always makes me think of a little saying my mother used to have when I did the same thing. Say, just because one idiot goes down the road, do you need to go down the road as well? Or she put it in other ways, as one of the other more common sayings. Can anybody think of it? Yeah, if somebody jumped off the bridge, would you jump off it too? There's all sorts of sayings like that, isn't there? But we do it without even recognising we've done it. We're like a bunch of lemmings sometimes. You know what they're like? I tried to play them on the computer and they always beat me. Because they're always determined to kill themselves. You know? You see, we need to get outside this framework. We need to take what is good and we need to take it right into here. We need to think outside the square that we normally live in. And we need to let love and faithfulness never leave us. And we're not normally like that. He talks about binding them around your neck. You know what it's saying? Saying, don't let them go. Tie them to you. And write them on the tablet of your heart. Make sure that everything you think is motivated from here, not just doing it from here. One of the things that has happened to me over the years, some people say, oh, I tried Christianity and it failed. You know why it failed? It's because sometimes it's been the person's own fault and sometimes it's been the fault of the people who have been teaching them. If you teach a person that they've got to obey a law and you don't covet and you don't murder and you don't do this, you don't do that, by instinct we will always do it. That's our nature, that's our aspect of who we are. But if you teach a person how to know and to love God and to experience God's love, the immediate response of any heart, and Jesus made it clear, is that you don't want to do all those other things. Because I really love my wife, I want to care for her. There are times when I felt upset with her and we've done some dumb things to each other. Both of us have done it. Really dumb things when I look back. But when I am loving my wife, I don't want to do those things. Don't you agree? When you really are loving, you don't want to damage. When you're living by law, when you're living because you got to, you're in trouble. Daniel wasn't living like that. He lived outside the frame. In fact, he went even further. He wasn't just being spiritual. He lived right in the presence of God. And for every one of us here, it's a case of the fact that we need to trust in God with all our hearts, instead of being pride-filled. Daniel really kept seeking after God, so much so that he had experiences of visitations of angels. Now, I don't know whether that's really what an angel looks like. It's a good attempt. I coloured his legs and that in because he's sort of like the description that Daniel gave. But most of us are responding in this way. Or some of us, here's the lion's den. Oh no! Wouldn't it be better to say, God, I trust you? The worst that could possibly happen for any one of us that says, God, I trust you, is that we could get eaten by the lions. Think about that for a moment. The worst that could happen for any one of us who says, God, I trust you, is that we could get eaten by the lions. For some of us, if we got eaten by the lions, it'd be even worse still. For others of us, because we trust God, we end up with Him, even if we do get eaten. Others of us don't say, oh no, but we're two-faced. We say, God, I believe you, but we don't actually do it. We actually don't follow His ways. We try to make our own sort of little ideas. Well, we pick up ideas from Christians along the way, and we don't face the fact that we need to be willing to modify our thinking constantly. See, we've got to keep living outside the square, because we'll keep creating new squares that limit our ability. If we say, God, I really love you, and I'm willing to learn to love you more, and we trust in Him with all our own heart, and we stop leaning on our own understanding, we stop leaning on the understanding that we have, which is simply our own good reference, our own square, our own box that we limit ourselves to. And if we keep in all our ways acknowledging Him, then it says very clearly this: He will make our paths straight. We don't have to be concerned about that anymore, because He's going to reshape us. He's going to help us. And just like Daniel, He says, don't be wise in your own eyes. Don't be wise at all in your own eyes, but fear the Lord and shun evil. You see, when we get wise in our own eyes, we start to get doing the wrong things, don't we? Amen? At the end of the promise is that if we do, He'll bring health and nourishment to our bones. And I want to simply finish this morning by saying, look, every one of us needs to think beyond the square. Every one of us in this room, because none of us here are really like Daniel, or the one we're meant to be modelling as Jesus meant to be modelling after. None of us are really like that. And I'd like to suggest this morning that, now when Mary Magdalene, the other Mary, or one of the other Marys, when Mary came to Jesus, she was so grateful because she had been rescued from an incredibly difficult life. But one of the things we keep finding about her response is this incredible gratefulness. It's recorded that she had 7 demons in her life. She was a woman who had all sorts of traumatic mess. Can you imagine if you were so much under the control of bad influences like that, how much of a shift she had to make? And maybe some of us are not so extreme as that, but there's some kind of shift we need to make this morning. So I'm going to pray. I'm going to invite you to think seriously. What do I really want? I think there's a place that's far worse than the lion's den that I wouldn't want to face. And I know I would like to be in heaven, and I'd like to be with all those good things that God talks about. But basically, I've got to make the decision as to what I do to follow through on it. So let's talk to him. Father God, this morning we come. We acknowledge that even Mary is no different than any of us. And in many ways, Daniel is so different to many of us. Lord, in my own journey, as I've thought the last few days about this, there's some things that you want to address. And I want to say, I put my trust in you. And Lord, there's others of us here identifying with that this morning. And we want to say, Lord, we trust you. We're sorry that we haven't trusted you in the past. We're sorry that we have done wrong in your eyes. Lord, and we're not really sorry because we're still making the shift at the moment. Help us to really know the impact of that for our lives so that we can really get on with living life the way you designed us to live instead of living in our own way and our own understanding, as the text says. So help us, God. Forgive us, God, for the times of failure. And help us to live with you every day the way that you'd like us to. In Jesus' mighty name. And they all said? Amen. And they all said? Amen. I believe there's a cup of tea after this. And if you'd like to join and share in that. And I'd like you to show some real appreciation to the team that did so wonderfully here this morning. Yeah. Well done. May the Lord bless you. Have a wonderful week. And if you want to talk or ask questions or whatever, feel free to do so. If you want to challenge us, that's fine. Lord bless you.